Welcome to another deep dive, listeners. Today we're digging into seeds of destruction, the hidden agenda of genetic manipulation.
Yeah, it's a fascinating, if controversial, look at the history and motivations behind GMOs.
Yeah, this book definitely doesn't pull any punches. Right off the bat, it throws out this idea that some powerful people might see GMOs as a way to control, well, others.
Yeah, it frames GMOs not just as a scientific thing, but as
Yeah.
part of a power struggle, you know?
It definitely makes you think. And the book names names, too.
Oh, yeah, it does. The Rockefellers, Henry Kissinger, Monsanto,
Yeah.
they're all there.
It's like a who's who of power players. But before we get too deep into that, let's back up a bit. The book spends some time on the early days of recombinant DNA research.
The beginnings of genetic engineering, really.
Mhm.
And it talks about how scientists were worried even back then about the risks.
But it sounds like those worries weren't always addressed.
Not exactly. See, back then, they used this idea of substantial equivalence to decide if a GMO was safe. Basically, if it seemed pretty similar to the non-GMO version, they figured it was fine,
So like if it looks like a tomato and tastes like a tomato,
even with a few extra genes tossed in, yeah,
they just assumed it was safe.
pretty much. But a lot of scientists thought that was a bad idea.
Mm.
They said even small changes could, do unexpected things. Like maybe it's less nutritious now, or maybe it could even be toxic.
And the book says this lack of real scrutiny let companies like Monsanto get GMOs to market without really knowing if they were safe.
That's the gist of it, yeah. They use RBGH as a big example.
RB
Recombinant bovine growth hormone. It's this genetically engineered hormone to make cows produce more milk. The book says Monsanto pushed it through despite worries about, well, everyone from the cows to the people drinking the milk.
And it gets worse. The book claims there was a revolving door between Monsanto and the FDA, people going back and forth, working for one, then the other.
Yeah, it definitely raises questions about, whose interests were really being served.
It makes you wonder about the objectivity of the whole thing.
Right. Like, was it really about safety?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it about corporate profits?
And then there's the case of Arpad Pusztai.
Oh, yeah, Pusztai. He was doing research on GMO potatoes.
And he found...
He found some things that suggested these GMO potatoes could be bad for you. Health risks.
And of course, this didn't go over well.
Not at all. The book describes it as a huge effort to shut him down, discredit his work. Like, who gets to decide what's true, Especially when it involves so much money and power.
It even claims Bill Clinton and Tony Blair tried to silence him.
Now, that part might be debatable, but it shows how much pressure can be put on people when their research threatens, well, powerful interests.
It's a bit unnerving, right? If they'd go to those lengths to bury research that questioned GMOs.
Makes you wonder what else might be going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, folks. And this is where Seeds of Destruction takes this kind of unexpected turn. It goes into the history of eugenics and this whole idea of population control.
Yeah, it's not as random as it seems. The book connects it all back to GMOs. Like it's all part of this long-term plan to control populations, especially in poorer countries.
Okay, so for those of us who didn't major in mad scientist history, eugenics.
Right. So eugenics was this idea back in the early 1900s that you could, improve humans through selective breeding.
So deciding who gets to have kids and who doesn't.
Exactly. And they did some pretty awful things, like forced sterilizations. It was really messed up.
So how does this population control thing tie in?
Well, after World War II, nobody wanted to talk about eugenics anymore,
Yeah.
because of the Nazis.
Right. It had some baggage.
Definitely. But the book says the idea didn't really go away. They just started calling it population control instead.
So same idea, new marketing.
Basically. And groups like the Population Council, started by John D. Rockefeller III, they were big on this.
Rockefeller again?
Yeah. The book claims their goal was to slow down population growth, especially in Africa, Asia,
Yeah.
Places that weren't already wealthy.
And they did this by...
Promoting family planning,
Okay.
providing contraceptives, that sort of thing. But the book suggests it wasn't always, entirely voluntary.
This is starting to feel less like history and more like a...
Conspiracy theory.
Well, I was going to say a spy novel, but yeah, kind of.
Wait till we get to Henry Kissinger.
Oh no, what did he do?
The book says he wanted to use food as a weapon.
Food is a weapon. Come on, that's James Bond villain stuff.
Right. But Seeds of Destruction takes it seriously. They say Kissinger thought that if you controlled the food supply, you controlled, well, everything. You could use it to pressure other countries, make them do what you want.
So you're telling me a loaf of bread could be more powerful than I don't know, a tank?
That was the idea. They even link it to this real document, NSSM 200, which is this top secret report by the U.S. government back in the 70s, and it outlined ways to reduce population growth, especially in developing countries.
Okay, so we've got eugenics, population control, food as a weapon. Where does the Green Revolution fit in? I thought that was supposed to be a good thing, more food for everyone.
Right, that's how it's usually portrayed.
Right.
But Seeds of Destruction says, hold on a minute. They argue that while, yeah, the Green Revolution did boost food production, it also had some serious downsides. Well, they say it mainly benefited big landowners and these huge corporations, while a lot of small farmers got pushed out.
So it wasn't just about, ending world hunger out of the goodness of their hearts.
The book says no. They argue it was more about, control. Whoever controls the food supply controls the world. And that leads us right into GMOs.
The GMO revolution, as this book calls it. Like it's some grand finale.
Exactly. They're saying GMOs aren't just about feeding the world. They're the next step in this whole plan for control.
It's a lot to think about. Like, we started with messing with genes in a lab, and now we're talking about, like, controlling the entire food system. Kind of makes you wonder, what are we really trying to do with all this?
And that's what this book, Seeds of Destruction, wants us to ask. What are the real goals here? Is it just about feeding people, or is it about something else?
Yeah, because they're saying it's not just about, bigger crops and better technology. It's about power, right?
Exactly. Who has it? Who wants it? It all comes back to that. And they use golden rice as a case study. Kind of.
Golden rice. Okay, so that was, remind me, they put vitamin A in rice, right, to help with, like, nutritional deficiencies.
Right. They engineered it to produce beta-carotene, which your body turns into vitamin A.
Yeah.
They made it like this golden color.
Right, right. And that was supposed to be, like, the big GMO success story.
That was the idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Solve malnutrition with science. But this book, they dig into it, and, well, they're not so impressed.
Do you think it was a flop?
I don't know about a flop, but they say it hasn't really worked as well as advertised. And they suggest it might even have, like, some risks that haven't been dealt with.
Hold on, risks? Like, from eating this rice?
Potentially, yeah. That's what they claim. And their point is, maybe all the hype around golden rice, it distracted from other solutions. Maybe there were better ways to deal with vitamin A deficiency.
Like what? Just, like, giving people vitamins?
That or, helping them grow more diverse crops, improving their overall diet, not just focusing on this one engineered solution.
So it's like they're saying GMOs can be the shiny object that makes us miss the bigger picture.
That's one way to put it, yeah. And then there's the whole issue of, like, who controls these technologies? The book points out that with GMOs, it's basically just a handful of companies that call the shots.
Yeah, it mentions, like, Monsanto and, I can never keep them all straight.
DuPont, Syngenta, Dow, these big agricultural giants. And the book argues that this kind of concentrated power, it's a problem.
Because then they can, like, dictate the terms for everyone.
Exactly. They control the seeds, the pesticides, the patents. It all goes back to that idea of control. And then, to make it even scarier, there's Terminator technology.
Oh, yeah, that rings a bell. Weren't those seeds that couldn't reproduce?
Exactly. You plant the seeds, you get a crop, but the seeds from that crop, sterile, can't plant them again. You have to go back to the company and buy more.
Wait, seriously? They can do that? That's wild.
That's the technology, yeah. Genetic use restriction technologies, or GRT. And the book argues this is like the ultimate power move. Total dependence on these corporations, especially for farmers.
Wow. So it's like we've wandered into some pretty dark territory here. It started with GMOs, but it's really about, like, the future of food and who gets to decide.
Right. And that's what Seeds of Destruction is trying to make us aware of. Whether or not you agree with everything they say, you have to admit, it makes you think.
It definitely does. And I think that's the point of a good deep dive, isn't it? To get us asking questions, maybe doing a little more digging on our own. Thanks for taking this journey with us today, listeners. And until next time, keep those minds questioning.